Hello, Bookman Fan Club. Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about A Crown of Swords by Robert Jordan. This is a spoiler-filled video. We're going to be discussing spoilers. So, if for some reason you want to come back to my YouTube video after you finish the book and see what I have to say about it, click off now and click back once you finished it. But yeah, we're going to talk about this and cue the intro. So how I'm going to break this video down is I believe there's a few distinct storylines that are concurring during the course of this story, book seven, The Wheel of Time. And so I'll be talking about each of those, giving them each their own segment, and then sort of talk about what I like and dislike, and also touch on things just overall, like the structure and story wise that I liked and also disliked. To start, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the characters who got like one or two point of view chapters in this book, and then work our way up to some of the more feature characters. First, we'll talk about Savannah from the Shido Ale. She actually is one of the opening point of views in this story, and I really enjoyed that one specifically because we got to see how the devastation that was the Battle of Dumais Wells in the previous book, Lord of Chaos, what sort of impact that had on the team that lost. And we can really see through their perspective, like the travesties and the disgusting aspects of war. And that was really, I thought, well portrayed and was a good decision by Jordan to sort of show that through her character and how, terrifying it really would be to see the Ashaman on a battlefield, just like cutting people in half. So I enjoyed that. She has a few later point of views where she elaborates with Samuel, one of the Forsaken, R.I.P. by the way. He was a decent Forsaken, I suppose. I don't think he did like that much in the story before he died. He had a cool scar though, I guess, but that's besides the point. It was nice to see her sort of interacting with the Forsaken and getting the point of view from the bad guys in the story. I think it really just expands the scope of this already like super large story that Jordan is trying to tell. So that was nice to see, how the bad guys also playing as the good guys, not just what the good guys are planning. We also have a couple more Morgase chapters in this book, if I remember correctly. The if there was any before the one I'm about to reference, I forgot them. But the one I'm thinking of is where we sort of have an allusion to, or Jordan alluding to Morgase being assaulted by one of the White Cloaks. I guess the one of the head White Cloaks now after the death of Padron Nile after the last book, which was a pretty crazy ending. Um, I mean, these chapters weren't the most like compelling or interesting. Sort of, I feel like their function was just to expand the world more and sort of get the dominoes tumbling more as we build up towards the great final battle. Um, but yeah, I mean, they were. It was nice to see the Sean Chan actually come back because I think the last book they were in was like book two, and then we just didn't hear about them anymore. I mean, Rand has the tassel to sort of remind himself that they're still there, and I think that's for us to remind ourselves that they're still there. But to see them come in full force in this story was I enjoyed that because I really did like their concept as a culture and an army and the sort of history behind them. Then finally, to sort of wrap up the shorter point of view, lesser characters in this story, we're going to talk about Perrin. Um, he has a few chapters. I think it's like three or four in a row to start the story, and I really don't remember any of them. I think it's just sort of him watching Rand sort of deal with the aftermath of the battle that just took place in Lord of Chaos and him just missing his wife. Which I guess I understand that, but I don't remember too much from his chapters in honesty until I believe the last point of view chapter he gets. He goes through a gateway to Giheldon, I believe is how it's pronounced. Um, and they're given the task to sort of root out the Dragon Sworn and you know give the Dragon Reborn a better image across the countryside because right now they think everybody that follows him is a lunatic because they burn houses down and kill people. He also gets into that fight with Rand where Rand throws him into a brick wall. Um, I mean, justified. I don't like pairing. So let's discuss some of the big players in this story. First, we'll talk about the happenings in Ebu Dar and Solidar. We have some POV chapters from Egwene as the Amaryllis seat. It's sort of interesting to see how she she sort of functions in that position of the Amerlin, and how she's getting tugged and pulled by all the Aes Sedai to sort of do her to follow their agendas and do what they want her to, and how she sort of has to learn to fight that and establish herself as like a prominent figure. We also learn that Moff Gideon has escaped, one of the Forsaken, so that was pretty interesting. I think they touched on that in the last book. On all honesty, I think that's when she escaped. But to see sort of the tension that rose when they figured out that the chain had opened and the Adam was that built tension. I thought that was pretty nice, just writing wise. And we get to see Lan again. He has a bond with Mirel now because Moraine switched his bond to Mirel after her death, which I'm pretty sure she's dead. I've seen some theories that she's still alive at this point in the series, but I think she is dead. But we get to see Lan again, and Egwene as the Amerlin, demands him to go find Nynaeve. That's really much for her arc. That takes up a good portion of the middle, and they're honestly kind of forgettable. She gets a massage by that one Aes Sedai, which was kind of weird. I was a little unsettled by that, but that's about it for her point of view chapters. Matt was, I would say, stole the show in this book. This is definitely a Matt book, a Matt or Rand book, but I think Matt, his character and his growth was the greatest out of all the characters in this one, and I think it was written well too. We get to see that sort of transition from him being an irresponsible kid to actually becoming a formidable leader. We see that through his the sort of the decisions he makes. Oh, sorry, but yeah, and we also get to see him build empathy, start to you know become more caring as an individual in this one. Ends up leading to his demise at the end. I'm almost certain he doesn't die, of course, but he stays back while the others go and try to get the bulwark because he wants to find Oliver. He's not going to leave the little guy behind, and then he ends up in a Shan Chan invasion. Um, and I'm almost certain that they probably have I can't think of the word, but he's definitely in Shan Chan arms now. Um, but yeah, no, his growth in this book was great. I really enjoyed it. The stuff with the queen, I think, was intended to be humorous. She just kind of molests him though, against his will, and that kind of sucks for him. And like, I actually felt bad for him because he like goes to the other characters and they're just like laughing at him about it, which is kind of crazy. But we really get to see a more mature Matt in this one, and it doesn't feel like rushed or forced. It actually seems genuine, and I really appreciated that for his character. With Matt, of course, in the search for the Weather Bowl was Elaine and Nynaeve. Elaine has always been all right in my eyes. She's never been one of my favorites, but I guess I don't hate her. Sorry. Hear what? Avienda, I think it was nice to sort of see Elaine and Avienda's relationship build in this one. And I saw it sort of gave me a more of a fondness for Elaine, the fact that she would sort of put her traditions aside to learn the ale traditions from Avienda, which leads to the hilarious apology scene where they have to like bend their back and break it just to say thank you to Matt, and he just kind of blows it off, which was honestly hilarious. There's also the iconic line where Nynaeve says, "I will not shout at you." She shouted, which is pretty funny. But laying this one, sort of just like how kind of like how she always is, except for the dynamic with her and Avienda. I enjoyed that. It makes her a more sympathetic character. Birgit, Birgette, I don't know how you pronounce her name. I like her and Matt's relationship. I think Jordan even goes to the point of making it that they are just friends, and I feel like that's something that's nice to see in this series because I feel like most of the time when men and women converse, they just are either in love with each other or they hate each other. Um, and I think Mike's books reviews talked about this because I watched his video before this, so I'm just going to steal all of his ideas and say they're mine. But Nynaeve is also one of my personal favorite characters, even though I would probably despise her in real life. This one, we don't see like much change in her character. We do get to see her break her uh, channeling block. So I'm excited to see what Jordan will do with that now because she's like overpowered kind of now. I feel like that was the only thing that written wise was holding her back from just sort of beating anybody, and now it's not there. So I wonder what other limitations Jordan can write to the story so that the good guys don't win too easily. She's also reunited back with Lan. That rescue scene I saw coming before the chapter even started, but it was still satisfying. I didn't care for the predictability of it too much. Her and Elaine converse with what is called the Kin. They're like a secret society of like Aes Sedai rejects. That was cool. I don't know. It wasn't too enthralling. It was interesting to sort of see why the White Tower hasn't done anything about them. And there was a couple nice characters that came out of the kin that I enjoyed, like Rianne and I can't remember any of the other names, but there's like 1,000 named characters in this series. That was interesting. Mog Hideon like throwing Bellfire at her and almost drowning her was pretty cool scene, pretty intense. Of course, I knew she wasn't going to die, which kind of kills the tension. Um, I feel like that's one of the big flaws in these stories is Robert Jordan has wrote in plot armor for all the characters, sort of being Targaryen. So it's like when they're put in these intense situations, it's cool for the sheer intensity of it, but there's the stakes are kind of killed by the fact that you sort of know they're not going to die. One character that did die though was Nailshon or Nelson. I don't know how to say. Um, he was sort of just like a background character, like a tertiary character, and his death actually upsetted me. So props to Robert Jordan for getting me to care so much about a background character. Basically, that was pretty upsetting when he eventually passed. But the lane naive, they find the bowl eventually, and then they set off to try to get to work the bowl with the sea folk and the kin and the Aes Sedai. And Matt stays back with Dom Marilyn, who hasn't done anything important since like the first book, I feel like. Because he was a very cool and fascinating character with a really cool like background backstory would probably be the proper word. And they just haven't done much with him like the last couple of books. The same with Julian, but I don't think they ever did much with him in the first place. He was just sort of like a Nelson background character. But yeah, I mean I feel like that's the most important parts of that arc. The Matt chapters always had me interested. A couple of Lane naive chapters. It was nice to see them interact with the sea folk and sort of get the lore and the culture behind them. But I think that about wraps up everything that I was going to discuss about them. Finally, let's discuss my favorite character in the series and his arc in this book. That would be Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn. He definitely has depression, and I really enjoy Min as a character in this one. I think other than Matt, she probably has some of the greatest growth in this one as well. I feel like in previous books she was sort of just like Rand's girlfriend, like the chosen one's girlfriend. But this one we see that she has definitely more of a function than that in the story. She's important to his plan, honestly, with her viewings, helping him sort of decide what decision's best, what he should do, if he should keep pairing around in case, a viewing told her that he should. I feel like half the characters in this story have abilities to see into the future, which, from a writing standpoint, it's a fun tool to use because you can use it as sort of a foreshadowing and red herrings. But I feel like it's kind of overdone. That almost everybody I feel like can see into the future somehow. Not everybody, but there's like three or four characters I can think of off the top of my head that has that power. That's besides the fact. So we can see Rand sort of use his Ta'veren like luck as he tries to talk to the rebels and sort of, I guess, persuade them to, join his side. This is after he talks to the Sea Folk and convinces them to give him a good bargain. And that's when we run into Padan Fane again, who this like little snake slithery guy is just comes out of anywhere. I mean, apparently there's like five of him because I feel like he's part of every organization in this story. Um, but he sort of causes this like evil dust cloud to attack them, and then he like in the confusion he like stabs Rand in his like wound and almost kills him. And then so we get to the scene where all the Aes Sedai and Wise Ones are in his room as they heal him. Cad Swan is a character I've not mentioned yet, but her introduction in the story I thought was really interesting. I like her function as like she seems like an actual Aes Sedai. She's really intimidating. Everybody like rushes to make sure she's not disgruntled in any way. And they say her power is like unmatched, and her like stories, if even half of them are true, she'd be a monster. So it's pretty interesting stuff there. But she tries to heal Rand, or she doesn't. She gets someone, one of the other Aes Sedai to do it. Then she can't fully heal it. Then one of the Ashaman does it and heals him. Once again, I knew he wasn't going to die, so these scenes were almost kind of useless. Then we get to the final battle scene with Samuel. Um, and this was a little anticlimactic, sort of. I guess I was expecting like a full-fledged battle like we saw in like Fires of Heaven, but we get to see Rand's plan, which I thought was very fascinating, interesting how he uses the one power to sort of to lure Samuel towards him. Also, the scene with the where he opens the gateway and they all run through, that was pretty sweet with da Davram Bashir and his troops flying through the gateway that ran into the Ashaman made was pretty sweet. But then we get I forgot to mention this. Cadswan approaches Rand and sort of is like, "Hey, you're hearing like another like random people talking in your head, right? Because you're going crazy because you're a man who can channel," and that like freaks him out. And I feel like we don't get it loose there in POV once after that. Like we don't hear anything about Luce Theron muttering in his head after she mentions that, which is interesting. Maybe there's an importance there. I also thought Luce Theron. Let me not get ahead of myself. So we get to the final battle scene. Samuel sort of chasing him down. Rand's like just barely healed from getting stabbed in his wound, and now like fire hit his heel, so he's like limping around. I'm like, so he loses. Maybe he actually loses against the Forsaken this time. That would be interesting to see how it progresses in the next book. Him, taking a significant loss like that, especially after he just got kidnapped in the last one. That doesn't happen. Eventually, Samuel gets in a pissy fit because Rand is like destroying his house. So they go to Shadar Logoth, which was interesting to see how Rand's developed as a character from the first time he was there to now. I enjoyed that. But he's sort of moving around, trying to find Samuel, figure out a way to get to him once they're in Shadar Logoth. Samuel's like throwing lightning and fire at him, trying to melt him. And then this like random man shows up who my theory was that it was Luce Theron himself somehow to like dissipate, detached himself from Rand and helped him uh, out of the hole. That's probably wrong. I really don't know who this guy is. Maybe it's one of the Forsaken. I highly doubt somebody that's going to be on the side of the light, the good side. But Rand eventually figures out how to get the better upper hand on Samuel. He's waiting to throw the fire at him and eliminate him from the universe. And then the ale that, and I actually remembered this surprisingly, the ale that Rand left in Shadar Logoth from a book or two ago shows up again, which how she's still alive, I don't know. But she's like kind of feral now and crazy because of the evil that's in Shadar Logoth. And so he goes to, honestly, this scene kind of confused me. I don't know who he throws the Bellfire at. Does he throw it at Samuel or does he throw it at um, the ale woman that he left there? Okay, I'm upside down now. I'm upside down. Why am I upside down? Sorry, guys, my cat stepped on my keyboard and flipped my camera upside down. But to pick up where I left off, the final battle, I don't think it's. I'm honestly confused what happens at the end. Read some Reddit threads that mention that this is a really important scene for the future. I guess Samuel's dead, but I mean, he didn't. I don't know. I assume he is. I guess the Mashadar, the evil winds, ate him and killed him. So we'll wait and see if that's true. I still think Lanfear is alive because we didn't see a body when she died. She was just pushed through a portal. I mean, she's one of the Forsaken. I'm sure pushing her through a portal might not kill her. She might get away with it. But which could also mean Moraine is still alive. But yeah, not to say that this was like a lousy ending to the story. I still think the conclusions in all these stories are like great. I guess I was just looking for a different type of battle between Rand and Samuel, not sort of run around, throw lightning at each other, get eaten by the wind. I feel like that was such an anticlimactic way for him to go out because he was hyped up as, you know, the defensive, military strategic Forsaken, and he kind of went out like that. I don't know. But I still think the spectacle of the scene was pretty awesome, of course. But yeah, so for Rand, character arc here, we get to see how he's dealing with his madness, his descent towards it. I really enjoyed that we got a moment here where he was actually happy when he's like, I'm feeling like I have good luck today. And then he becomes the king of the world at the end. So not much of, character intrigue in the story for Rand, but I'm curious to see how he will act now that they put the crown on his head. He's the king of the world, as they call him, king of Ilion at least. So he owns basically like all of the East, and I guess the Shan Chan own the West. So we'll get to see maybe an intense battle there. Um, but yeah, I'm curious to see how he'll take on this new role, or how he'll deal with his madness as it progresses to get worse. Um, I'm still waiting for somebody. I think theory Nynaeve's going to come up with a cure for madness. I mean, she's cured stilling, and I forget what the other name for it when it's men who lose the ability to channel. But she's going to come up. She's going to cook something up. I feel like, and that'll solve that issue of the story. Uh, but overall, to wrap up, I really don't think this book is part of the slog. I've started to read Path of Daggers, so we'll see how that goes. But I mean, this book isn't on par with like Lord of Chaos, Fires of Heaven, or Shadow Rising, but I mean, it's close. I mean, I would say I enjoyed this book as much as like The Great Hunt and The Dragon Reborn. So, and definitely more than The Eye of the World. So I definitely wouldn't say this is part of the slog. It was interesting. I fear that these books are getting a little formulaic, and maybe that's just the writing style, how he plots his stories. I feel like all of these stories are like a roller coaster with one hump, but the hump is like pretty big and insane once you get to it. Um, but yeah, we get every book, characters build up, crazy ending. I don't know. I think it was definitely prevalent in the first three books. You could definitely see the rhythm there. I think Grant kills Ishamel 3 times in the conclusion of the story. That's not a big critique though. It really doesn't throw me off and maybe not want to continue the series or anything on that level. But it is. I would task to see maybe a different sort of plot thread. I like the Great Hunt and the Fires of Heaven for that reason because the Fires of Heaven, we've had the battle, they win, and then he goes and kills Ravine the Forsaken, which was a pretty nice battle scene. So that was a little bit of a change in the normal structure. And then Great Hunt, we had like craziness going on. They have the crazy battle at the end because they get the horn back in the middle, but then there's still story left, and I really enjoyed that. Lord of Chaos was sort of in the form of the others, working your way up to a giant climax. The writing style is like the rest of the books. I'm a fan of Jordan's writing style. My only nitpicks are there may be a little bit too much fluff in these stories. Maybe not describe every shirt that somebody wears. And even for like world building purposes, I think sometimes even that some of that stuff can be cut out. Also uses like had a lot, like hads beside each other, and he does that for a couple other words too, which I wish maybe he rephrase his sentences or rework the syntax so it sounds a little smoother when you're reading it. Those are just minor things. They don't like take me out of the story. They're just a little jarring to read. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed Crown of Swords. Definitely not part of the slog. Maybe not one of the greatest, but definitely up to par with, the excellence that the Wheel of Time series has had so far. And I'm interested to see if that continues in the next one. But I've heard it may not. But that'll be the end of this video today, guys. My official Bookman rating, I guess I'll give it like a 3.5 to 4 out of 5 for the reasons that I mentioned. Solid read. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to The Path of Daggers. I'm going to try to read some other stuff too, maybe some sci-fi, get some reviews up for that on the channel as well. But thank you guys for watching, and like and comment and subscribe if you would like.